Colonel Naomi Pierce stood by the wide observation window of the UES Valkyrie, her gaze fixed on the shimmering expanse of stars. Decades had passed since the resource wars nearly tore humanity apart, leaving Earth's surface scorched and raw, and its population a fraction of what it once was. From that chaos emerged a powerful unified government called the United Earth Alliance, founded on the principle that humanity's survival depended on shared resources and technological cooperation. Naomi had joined the military in the years following the planet's reconstruction. She had seen both the best and worst of human nature, but she had never witnessed what was coming now, a first contact scenario with an unknown extraterrestrial force. Rumors were swirling through every level of the fleet. 5 strange vessels, spotted at the outer reaches of the solar system, were on a direct course for the region between Neptune and Pluto. Many people hoped for peaceful contact and the chance to learn from a more advanced culture. Many others feared a repeat of the devastation that nearly ended the human race once before. Whatever the truth was, Naomi intended to find it. She exhaled slowly, her breath fogging a corner of the glass. Her reflection stared back at her. Tall, angular features, short-cropped hair streaked with threads of gray at the temples, lines of worry etched into her brow. She recalled the stories she had heard from her late grandfather, who had survived the vicious battles over the last remaining oil fields. Those wars had changed the course of civilization, forcing everyone to innovate or die. After the bombs and famine, after the climate catastrophes, a battered humanity had engineered new ways to power cities, feed millions, and defend the planet. While conventional weapons still existed, there were rumors among the top brass about something else, something hush-hush called Project Sun Shield, a system so advanced that it bordered on science fiction, rumored to bend energy in ways no standard physics textbook could fully explain. Naomi was uncertain about the details, but she knew the UES Valkyrie carried hidden systems well beyond the standard railguns and missile pods. Every officer assigned to the Valkyrie had a top-level security clearance, but even they were not privy to the entire picture. That was how carefully guarded humanity's newfound technology was. She turned at the sound of approaching footsteps. Lieutenant Mara Eldridge, her second-in-command, approached with a data slate clutched in her hand. Mara's posture was rigid, her voice steady as she delivered her update. "Colonel, Earth Command has confirmed the presence of 5 unidentified craft entering the Kuiper Belt. We've been ordered to establish contact under Protocol 5. Peaceful overtures, minimal show of force. But Command also wants us to maintain readiness to escalate if needed." Naomi knew exactly what that meant. Use only conventional weapons and shields in public view. Do not deploy anything that might hint at the Alliance's more exotic breakthroughs, and under no circumstances allow these visitors to know just how far humanity had come since the days of nuclear fission and chemical rockets. They wanted the Valkyrie to look formidable enough that the aliens would hesitate to attack, but not so sophisticated as to appear threatening on a galactic scale. It was a balancing act, one that Naomi was determined to pull off correctly. She glanced at Mara's data slate. The readouts from the orbital telescopes showed faint energy spikes around the alien craft. Their shape was unclear, but preliminary analysis suggested an unusual configuration, perhaps some kind of lattice or crystalline structure. Naomi's heart thumped at the sight. First contact was no longer a hypothetical scenario taught at officer academies. It was here. The question now: would these newcomers be peaceful explorers or opportunistic conquerors? "We'll head out within the hour," Naomi said, handing the slate back to Mara. "Let's not keep them waiting." Hours later, the UES Valkyrie propelled itself toward the edge of the solar system with a steady hum of its fusion drive. On the bridge, Naomi stood at the center console, wearing a communications headset. The crew around her checked final readiness. Weapons, shields, sensor arrays, all set to nominal output. No sign of the advanced systems, nothing out of the ordinary. She could feel the tension in the air. Despite the official line of wanting a peaceful exchange, an undercurrent of worry pervaded every officer's expression. She knew some of them had families back on Earth, or on the orbital stations around Mars. They needed to trust that their leadership would protect them if negotiations went sour. For her part, Naomi's mind kept drifting back to the half-veiled references to Project Sunshield, along with an entire hidden fleet rumored to be spread throughout the solar system with advanced stealth capabilities. If things turned ugly, humanity might have a fighting chance. When the Valkyrie reached the coordinates provided by Earth Command, the 5 unidentified craft were already there, waiting. The tension on the bridge escalated. Each alien vessel dwarfed the Valkyrie by at least half again in length, their surfaces glinting under distant starlight. They seemed to reflect and refract that light, as though made of interwoven crystals. Naomi stared, mesmerized, until her sensor officer, Lieutenant Sasha Quinn, spoke up. "We're receiving a transmission on multiple frequencies." Attempting to decode. Naomi nodded. The overhead speakers crackled, static giving way to a series of melodic tones, like wind chimes in a breeze. The translator software needed a minute. Then came a calm, measured voice in English. "Greetings. We are the Silent Collective. We come in peace to meet the denizens of this star system. Please respond." A hush fell over the crew. Naomi signaled to open a transmission. "This is Colonel Naomi Pierce of the United Earth Alliance, commanding the UES Valkyrie. We welcome you and are prepared to discuss peaceful relations between our peoples." She tried to keep her voice steady, projecting calm authority. The key was not to overdo it. If these aliens were advanced enough to cross interstellar space, they could probably glean a great deal about humans simply by analyzing voice patterns, radio signals, even the ship's electromagnetic emissions. She wondered if they already suspected the Valkyrie was more than it appeared. Moments later, a visual feed blinked onto the main screen. The figure that appeared was tall by human standards, perhaps 8 feet from crest to toe. Its skin glimmered with a teal hue, transparent in some sections as though made of living crystal. Where a mouth might be, there was only a smooth surface that glowed softly when it spoke. Its voice, modulated by the translator, carried a faint resonance that reminded Naomi of wind through a canyon. "Colonel Pierce, I am Zarek, envoy of the Silent Collective. Your signals have drawn our attention. We have monitored many transmissions from your world, evidence of a rapid technological recovery after a destructive conflict. We see that you have made admirable progress. We seek peaceful exchange. Would you permit us to approach one of your orbital facilities to discuss cooperation?" Naomi felt the familiar coil of distrust tighten in her gut. They had already been monitoring Earth for who knows how long, gleaning historical data from radio waves or maybe by more direct means. Still, this was first contact. She responded carefully. "Your arrival is unexpected, Zarek, but we welcome the chance to meet in a spirit of goodwill. We can arrange a summit at Orbital Station 7 near Saturn, where representatives from our alliance will be glad to speak with you. We only ask that you coordinate your approach vectors with us for safety." That last line was partially genuine. They needed time to position or hide certain military assets if these Cylon turn out to be more threat than friend. The figure's crystalline chest flickered, a swirl of color that the translator rendered as polite acknowledgement. "We accept your proposal. We anticipate a productive dialogue." With that, the screen returned to a starfield. Naomi exhaled, only then realizing her shoulders were tense. "Lieutenant Quinn, keep a close watch on their scans. If they start probing deeper than we'd like, let me know immediately." She looked around the bridge, meeting the eyes of several officers. "Let's set course for Saturn. Minimum show of force, but remain on guard." The journey inwards from the Kuiper Belt was surreal. The 5 silent ships trailed behind the Valkyrie, sometimes shifting positions in a fluid, almost organic formation, their crystalline hulls catching the faint sunlight. Naomi's sensor staff reported constant scanning pulses from the aliens, directed at everything: satellites, asteroids, planetary surfaces. It was as though they were building a comprehensive map of the entire solar system. Meanwhile, Naomi relayed daily updates to Earth Command, which in turn reminded her of the official directive: appear only moderately advanced "Do not reveal the cutting-edge capabilities." She knew the hidden stealth fleets were in position near Jupiter's moons, ready to intervene. She also suspected that Tuong Harold Klein, the supreme commander of Earth's defense, was personally monitoring every scrap of data from this encounter. Eventually, the two fleets arrived at Orbital Station 7, a massive ring-like installation orbiting Saturn, with rotating sections to simulate gravity. Crew members scurried to prepare a ceremonial greeting for the Cylon. This station had once been the crown jewel of post-war reconstruction, an ambitious collaborative project between Earth, Mars, and lunar authorities. Now it would be the setting for humanity's first diplomatic meeting with an alien race. As the Cylon ships took up delicate orbits around the station, Naomi ordered her team to power down the Valkyrie's main weapon systems to more convincingly play the role of an advanced yet not overly fearsome Earthcraft. Nevertheless, her finger hovered over the alert panel that could bring those systems online in seconds. The docking procedure with the Cylon craft was unexpectedly smooth. One of their vessels extended a crystalline ramp toward the station's main docking bay. Observers behind thick viewing windows watched as figures emerged, tall, slender forms whose limbs glistened with the same translucent material as their hulls. Zarek stood at the forefront, carrying a staff-like object that pulsed with bluish light. Naomi, wearing her formal uniform, led the station's greeting party. Cameras broadcast the scene to Earth, where countless millions watched in awe. The difference in height and posture between the two species was striking, and some of the station's staff couldn't mask their apprehension. Still, Naomi stepped forward and offered a hand in the universal gesture of greeting. Zarek inclined his head, a swirl of shifting lights across his chest plate. The translator captured the moment. "We are grateful to walk among you in peace," he said. Inside a large conference hall, the initial pleasantries were exchanged. The Cylons seemed polite enough, though Naomi caught an unmistakable undertone of condescension in how they lauded humanity's impressive resilience for a species that nearly annihilated itself a few decades prior. They praised Earth's recovery from nuclear devastation, from famine, from environmental collapse. The atmosphere remained civil until Zarek, flanked by two other Cylon delegates, began asking pointed questions about Earth's defenses. He mentioned the Alliance's reliance on primitive fusion drives and linear projectile weapons, as though praising a curious but outdated child's invention. Naomi answered carefully, highlighting only the mid-range technology that was already public knowledge. In parallel, the Cylon ship in orbit continued scanning, its beams reaching into the station's hull. Chief Engineer Flynn alerted Naomi that someone was probing their reactor systems and structural layout. Naomi requested a private moment with the Alliance leadership, stepping into a secure briefing room. On the holographic display, Tuong Harold Klein's stern face appeared. "They're scanning more than they admit," Naomi said. "Either they're extremely curious, or they're preparing for something else." Klein tapped a stylus against his desk. "We have intelligence from the hidden watchers near Saturn's moons that the Cylon have begun moving into strategic positions. We suspect they're testing our reaction times and measuring the extent of our weaponry. Keep them talking. Don't reveal anything about Project Sunshield. We need more time to see how they'll proceed." Naomi returned to the main hall to find the Cylon delegation politely inquiring about the scale of humanity's warship fleet. They insisted it was part of their protocol for ensuring safe interspecies contact, that they had to verify the defensive potential of any emerging civilization. The station's diplomatic team, led by a senior ambassador, tried to redirect the conversation toward cultural exchange, art, music, the resilience of Earth culture, but Zarek seemed disinterested in such topics. Instead, he kept pushing for technical details, occasionally offering vague promises like, "Should you prove cooperative, the Cylon Collective has been known to share certain rudimentary technologies with our younger peers." The subtext was clear: do as we say, and you might receive a few scraps of advanced knowledge. Behind Naomi's impassive expression, her frustration simmered. She could see the way the Cylon delegates observed every reaction from the human side, their swirling color patterns shifting in ways the translator system could not fully interpret. By the time the formal meeting ended, it was obvious that the Cylon considered themselves vastly superior, and perhaps they were, in some conventional sense. Naomi wondered whether their scanners had already detected anomalies, traces of advanced quantum fields that should not exist in a merely fusion-capable species. If so, they gave no outward sign, but she suspected their thorough scanning would eventually pick up the presence of hidden devices linked to Project Sunshield. Over the following day, tensions began rising. The Cylon exploration teams asked for tours of various Earth outposts. They visited the station's labs, power cores, and living quarters, always scanning, always prodding. Their demeanor never crossed into open hostility, but the pressure was unmistakable. Something about the Cylon approach was too invasive. Naomi felt compelled to have security details follow them at all times. Meanwhile, she received updates that more Cylon vessels were arriving at the edges of the solar system. The official line from Zarek was that these were only science vessels, yet their formation patterns seemed suspiciously militaristic. A second meeting convened in the station's Grand Hall to discuss further cooperation. This time, Tuong Harold Klein appeared via live hologram to address the Cylon. Naomi stood at his side. The moment of potential collaboration was overshadowed by the Cylon's request for protective oversight of Earth's strategic resources to prevent another disastrous conflict like the one that nearly ruined your species. The entire human delegation bristled at the notion of ceding sovereignty. Klein's voice was cold. "We appreciate your concern, Envoy Zarek, but the Alliance is more than capable of maintaining peace within our own star system. We would prefer an equal exchange rather than a paternalistic arrangement." Zarek's chest glowed in a pattern the translator had difficulty categorizing. Some staff recognized it as frustration or annoyance. "Our collective has studied civilizations across many systems. The pattern of conflict you exhibit is predictable for younger species. We are prepared to guide you away from repeating your destructive cycles, whether or not you believe you need such guidance." The hall fell silent. Naomi glanced at Klein, who clenched his jaw. "We'll have to politely but firmly refuse any arrangement where Earth's defenses are subject to external control." Shortly thereafter, the Cylon delegation abruptly ended the session. They returned to their ship with unreadable expressions. Naomi watched them depart, the heavy feeling in her stomach intensifying. Before she could fully analyze the situation, an urgent message arrived from the Titan relay. Cylon vessels were no longer just scanning the outskirts. They were moving in, deploying in an orbital pattern around Earth's main shipping lanes. One of the sensor officers described it as a net tightening on multiple fronts. That was all Naomi needed to hear. She convened a hasty briefing with the station's senior officers. They're positioning themselves for either an aggressive show of force or a blockade. We can't let them box us in. Everyone looked to her for direction. She relayed their plan to Earth Command. If the Cylon made any overt threat against the planet or its satellites, the Alliance would respond. In a secure comm line, Tuong Harold Klein's image flickered. "Colonel, we have confirmation from the Mars Observatory. They've detected Cylon power surges consistent with weapons charging. It's happening sooner than we thought." Naomi felt a chill. "Are we clear to engage?" Klein nodded grimly. "Operation Sunshield is authorized if they attack, but only if. We still hope to avoid open war. The moment you reveal those systems, we risk a full-scale confrontation, but might be the only way to ensure their respect and our survival." Naomi ended the call, steeling herself for the worst. Then the Cylon took the choice out of their hands. Without warning, a barrage of luminous beams lanced across the orbital paths. One of them struck Orbital Station 7's external ring, sending the station reeling. Another hammered a smaller defense platform orbiting nearby, breaching its hull in seconds. Naomi rushed to the Valkyrie's bridge and found her crew scrambling to bring weapons online. Explosions rattled the entire station as emergency lights flickered. Over the radio, she heard the panicked voices of station personnel. "Hull breaches. decompression in multiple sections, casualties mounting. This was not a warning shot, but a deliberate crippling strike. Naomi's response was immediate. All hands, battle stations. Launch the Valkyrie. We can't let them destroy the station or gain control of Saturn's orbit. Prepare to engage with standard weapons. She emphasized standard because that was still the official directive unless Earth Command authorized otherwise. The Valkyrie undocked, thrusters firing. When it emerged into open space, Naomi saw the horrifying beauty of the silent ships in combat mode. Their crystalline exteriors flared with swirling energy, releasing searing beams that cut through lesser craft with ease. The station's meager defense turrets returned fire, but to little effect. The Valkyrie unleashed a volley of railgun slugs and high-yield missiles. Some impacted the silent shields in bright bursts, but the damage was negligible. The aliens' advanced defenses shrugged off conventional assaults. Naomi's heart pounded. "We can't hold them back with standard weaponry," said Lieutenant Eldridge. "They're focusing on the station's reactor core. If they breach it, the entire structure could be lost." Naomi nodded. "I know." She toggled the emergency channel to Earth Command. "They're dismantling our defenses. We need Sun Shield authorization. Now." Tuan Klein's voice came back, laced with tension. "Authorization granted. Engage Operation Sun Shield. Show these Cylon that we are not the naive pushovers they believe us to be." Naomi typed in a secure code, and a portion of the Valkyrie's command console shifted, revealing a hidden interface. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a split second. Then the new system hummed to life. She felt a surge of adrenaline at the unprecedented technology she was about to unleash. From the corners of the solar system, stealth vessels that had been cloaked under advanced metamaterial fields revealed themselves, converging on Saturn. Simultaneously, quantum entanglement nodes, quietly stationed at key Lagrange points, activated. They began to shape and redirect energy fields in ways that defied conventional electromagnetic warfare. Naomi barked orders to her crew. "Power the shield generator. Let's see how they handle a taste of Project Sun Shield." A low thrumming sound reverberated through the hull as a shimmering barrier enveloped the Valkyrie. Rather than simply absorbing or deflecting incoming attacks, this shield harnessed them, channeling the energy into localized distortions that scattered or redirected the beams. The next time a silent beam slammed into the Valkyrie, it bent away as though refracted by a cosmic prism, arcing back toward the attacker's flank. The stunned, silent ship reeled from a glancing blow of its own weapon. The reaction from the aliens was immediate. They regrouped, focusing multiple beams on the Valkyrie. But each blast twisted through the shield's quantum lattice, dissipating into rainbow-like cascades of light. Suddenly, the tide of battle shifted. The newly revealed Earth fleet, armed with Sun Shield-based cannons and disruptors, targeted the silent vessel's propulsion nodes. A carefully modulated beam from the Valkyrie struck the largest silent cruiser, bypassing its crystalline plating through quantum interference. The alien ship shuddered, losing helm control. For the first time since their arrival, the Cylon found themselves outmatched in a domain they had not anticipated. Naomi opened a Broadwave channel. "To the Cylon Collective, cease fire immediately or we will disable your fleet entirely. We did not want this conflict, but we will defend ourselves." For a moment, no reply came. Then Zarek's voice echoed across the comm, laced with anger or perhaps astonishment. "You deceived us. We detected only rudimentary technology. How is this possible?" Naomi answered, "Humanity's path to recovery forced us to think differently about energy, matter, and warfare. We aren't the same species that nearly destroyed itself decades ago. We've learned not to underestimate potential threats, and we've learned to hide what must be hidden until necessary." Out the view screen, Naomi saw the rest of Earth's advanced warships decloak, forming a perimeter around the Cylon. Each was equipped with a variant of the Sun Shield system, their hulls faintly glowing. Cut off from their advantage, the Cylon ships hesitated. Some tried to retreat, but the disruptor beams targeted their engines, stalling them in place. Explosions dotted the darkness as a few Cylon vessels fired blindly, only to have their attacks bend and fold harmlessly into empty space. The illusions of an easy takeover vanished before their eyes. Zarek's final act of defiance was not to surrender outright, but to sever communications. The silent ships pivoted, searching for an exit corridor. The Earth fleet, under Naomi's direction, carefully disabled several of them without delivering fatal blows. Her orders were clear: send a message, but minimize unnecessary casualties. A battered hush fell over the battlefield. Some silent vessels managed to break away, ramping up faster-than-light drives that the Alliance's sensors could only partially track. But the remaining ships, 3 out of the original 5, floated in disarray around Saturn. Naomi led a small squadron to secure them, while rescue craft hurried to the stricken Orbital Station 7 to seal hull breaches and evacuate the wounded. The cost of a short but intense battle was high. Hundreds of station personnel were dead or missing. Defense satellites in Saturn's orbit had been obliterated, and the battered station was barely holding together. But humanity still stood. Naomi felt an odd mixture of sorrow and triumph as she surveyed the wreckage. She had never wanted open combat. Yet if it was a choice between subjugation or fighting back, she would choose to defend Earth every time. In the days that followed, the silent delegation vanished, withdrawing to the far side of the solar system. Some rumors held that they were regrouping or calling for reinforcements. Others suggested they might be rethinking their entire approach to this younger species. Meanwhile, Tuong Harold Klein convened an emergency summit with the Alliance Council. There was no more hiding the truth. Earth had advanced further than most might guess. If there were more silent fleets out there, or other species for that matter, humanity would need to decide how to present itself in the galaxy. Did they continue the facade of modest capability, or stand openly as an equal force to be reckoned with? Naomi returned to Earth for the first time in months, descending through the atmosphere to a newly rebuilt continent once scarred by the resource wars. Green fields mingled with blackened ruins that had been left as memorials. A massive complex in the Canadian Rockies housed the Alliance's Central Command. She arrived in the early morning, exhausted from days of negotiations and briefings. She found Tuong Klein in a secure war room, surrounded by hollow displays of the battered Orbital Station 7, the crippled silent ships, and the hidden nodes of Project Sunshield. The general's expression was grim but determined. "We've proven we can defend ourselves, Colonel, but the silent remain a threat. Our scouts report that they have numerous outposts beyond Pluto's orbit, likely staging grounds for future operations. We cannot ignore them." Naomi rubbed her temples. "Are we going to confront them directly out there, or wait for them to come back again?" Klein sighed. "The council is divided. Some want to open channels for negotiation, hoping we taught them a lesson in humility. Others want to push them out of the solar system completely. If they won't respect our sovereignty, they might just regroup and attack again." He paused, folding his arms. "Where do you stand?" She thought of the carnage at Orbital Station 7, the devastated families, and the overwhelming force the Silent had displayed. Then she remembered how quickly that force had crumbled once humanity revealed its true hand. "We should try to talk," she said at last, "but from a position of undeniable strength. We can't appear weak or naive. If the Silent want genuine peace, we'll meet them halfway. If they just want control, they'll find we aren't so easily overrun." Klein nodded, glancing at a blinking indicator on the console. "We've picked up a signal from a retreating Silent ship. It's addressed to you personally." Naomi's eyebrows rose. "Patch it through." A moment later, the cold flicker of a hologram formed. There stood Zarek, his crystalline surface chipped in places, the internal lights dimmer. The translator rendered his voice as subdued yet steely. "Colonel Pierce, the Silent Collective acknowledges that we underestimated your species. Our protocols led us to assess you as a post-conflict civilization in need of guidance. We see now that you have harnessed technology beyond what we predicted. We have lost ships and personnel, but we also recognize we cannot take your system without unacceptable losses on our side." Naomi studied the holographic visage, uncertain whether she should feel relief or suspicion. Zarek continued, We propose a temporary armistice, that we may reconsider our approach, and you may prepare your defenses. We do not apologize for our attempt to ensure galactic stability. Our perspective is that younger civilizations are prone to catastrophic mistakes. However, we are not blind to reality. We will depart your inner system for now. In due time, we shall revisit the possibility of alliance. Naomi exchanged a glance with Klein. The words from Zarek were hardly a heartfelt apology, but it was a step back from total war. She addressed the silhouette. We accept your armistice, Zarek, on the condition that you do not cross past Pluto's orbit without prior consent. If you violate that, we will respond accordingly. Our people did not seek conflict, but we will not be dominated. Zarek's form flickered, perhaps from damage to his ship's systems. We understand. Farewell, Colonel Pierce. Our collective will observe from afar. The hollow feed ended. Naomi sighed, leaning against the console. It felt anticlimactic, but it was better than a drawn-out war. She sensed that the Cylon were not done with Earth, and that future encounters might bring either true cooperation or a more devastating confrontation. In the aftermath, the Alliance devoted resources to repairing Orbital Station 7, caring for the wounded, and bolstering hidden assets throughout the solar system. Civilian populations on Earth and Mars demanded answers. Who were these Cylon, and why had the Alliance seemingly hidden so much of its capabilities? Conspiracy theories ran rampant, with some citizens terrified of unstoppable alien invasions, others praising the military's cunning. Naomi spent long hours debriefing station survivors, gathering intelligence on the Cylon's tactics. One thing remained clear. The Cylon considered themselves enlightened guardians of some cosmic order, policing less advanced species to ensure no threat emerged. They had not expected to find a world that had experienced near annihilation and then developed an entirely different technological paradigm. While repairs continued, Naomi found herself assisting an envoy of scientists eager to examine the captured Cylon vessels. 3 lay adrift near Saturn, their crews either evacuated or taken for medical treatment. Studying those ships might offer clues to the larger Cylon strategy or even potential ways to improve Project Sunshield further. The more they learned, the more synergy they might find between crystalline-based tech and humanity's quantum-lay systems. Before she boarded a shuttle bound for one of the damaged alien ships, Naomi received a discreet message from Tuan Klein. It contained a short line. We have to be ready for anything. Don't let your guard down. She understood. The Cylon might have left booby traps or stealth drones behind. But beyond that immediate danger was a broader question: how to handle the next wave of galactic travelers who might come. If the Cylon had found Earth, other civilizations might too. And the fact that Earth possessed technology that confounded even these advanced crystalline beings would not remain secret for long. Word would spread. Naomi set her jaw. She remembered how the resource wars had forced humanity to adapt or die, leading to the radical breakthroughs that gave birth to Project Sunshield. Perhaps that same adaptability would allow humans to negotiate or fight as circumstances demanded in a cosmic arena that was suddenly much more crowded. On the flight over to the alien wreck, she gazed out at Saturn's rings. They looked so tranquil, shimmering like cosmic jewels. She recalled as a child seeing them in a picture book and wondering if she would ever touch them. Now, she was a seasoned officer in a warship that bested an alien attack. The irony was not lost on her. Where once humanity gazed at the stars with naive wonder, they now peered out with cautious confidence, armed with knowledge that survival sometimes required secrecy and cunning. When the shuttle made contact with the captured Cylon vessel, Naomi and a team of engineers in EVA suits ventured through a breach. Inside, the corridors glowed with faint phosphorescence, the walls appearing to be grown or woven from living crystal. She felt an odd pang of remorse at the beautiful technology lying in ruins. They had come seeking dominion, but it was also possible they believed in their role as a guiding presence. That belief had led them to kill Alliance citizens and provoke a retaliation. She wondered if it might have turned out differently with more open conversation, or if the Cylon were too entrenched in their paternalistic worldview to listen. The team advanced, scanning, collecting data. They discovered a central control node that indicated the Cylon had broadcast constant telemetry back to a distant base. That base would likely analyze the entire battle, re-evaluating the humans for the collective's next encounter. When she returned to the Valkyrie, Naomi found a new message from Zarek. Colonel Pierce, you impress us. We realize that your species is capable of forging unexpected pathways in technology. We regret the loss of life. Perhaps in another time, we might have collaborated from the outset. But your hidden might concerns the collective. We must assess the threat you pose. We will not remain idle. Should your people expand beyond your star system, we will be watching. The tone was neither conciliatory nor openly hostile. More like a warning. Naomi composed her response. We're prepared to engage in open dialogue if you ever wish to try true diplomacy. But if you attempt to subjugate us again, we will respond with whatever force is necessary. She sent it, uncertain if Zarek would ever reply. In the days that followed, the Cylon presence withdrew to the fringes, focusing on their own wounded. Earth Command turned its attention to fortifying strategic points. Freed from some of the secrecy, the Alliance revealed partial truths about their advanced warship program and the Sunshield technology. The population reacted with a mix of relief that they had such defenses and fear at the knowledge that a formidable alien species was already measuring them for possible subjugation. Naomi found a measure of solace in the knowledge that they had a chance at forging a new path. The first contact had, indeed, gone wrong, but it had also proven humanity's capacity for resilience and ingenuity. The images of the crippled, silent ships floating near Saturn became emblematic of a civilization that had come looking for easy conquest, only to find a foe shaped by adversity. She believed that in time, a more cautious respect might grow between the two peoples. Or perhaps not. The galaxy was vast, with myriad agendas. But at least the Cylon knew now that humankind was not to be taken lightly. On a final night before returning to Earth, Naomi stood in the Valkyrie's observation bay once more. She watched Saturn's rings drift by, thinking about the precarious peace. The hum of the advanced shield generators reverberated through the ship's bulkheads, a reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. For better or worse, Earth had shown its true might. Next time, perhaps the Cylon would come with words of collaboration instead of demands and weapons. And if not, humanity was prepared. A species that had survived, nearly destroying itself, understood the price of war and the necessity of never being caught defenseless again. She closed her eyes, letting the tension ebb from her shoulders, and thought of the scattered illusions that had so thoroughly fooled the Cylon. All those decoy satellites, the careful layering of half-truths, the facade of simpler propulsion systems. It was a morally gray approach, but save them. One day, humanity might truly step into the galactic stage, not as a hidden power, but as an openly formidable force, forging alliances on equal terms. Until that day, they would stand watch, ready to defend their home and to negotiate from a position of strength. First contact had gone wrong, but out of the ashes of that disaster arose a new awareness in both sides, that each was far more complex and potentially more valuable as a partner than either had initially believed. In the weeks that followed, the Alliance Council released statements declaring the engagement a defensive action against alien aggression. Countless people lit candles or displayed holograms in memory of the station personnel who had lost their lives. Diplomatic channels circulated talk of sending an envoy to the edges of the system to formally broker a ceasefire. Meanwhile, Tuong Harold Klein worked tirelessly to expand the deployment of advanced nodes that tied into Project Sunshield, ensuring that if any other species tried to blindside Earth, they would meet the same swift response as the Cylon. Colonies on Mars and Luna welcomed additional defense platforms, a reassuring presence for colonists who now realized how vulnerable they might have been. And so the story spread among the populace. First contact gone wrong. Aliens stunned by humanity's warships. was a headline in major news outlets. People debated the ethics of deceit, the risk of escalation, and the potential for a galaxy teeming with powers far beyond their imagination. Some artists and poets drew parallels to Earth's own colonizers and the colonized, flipping historical narratives on their head. Others worried about retribution or the possibility that next time the silent might bring allies. But overshadowing all else was a sense of resolve. Humanity, once broken by its own hand, had emerged fiercely protective of its sovereignty. They would not kneel to a new overlord, no matter how advanced. Colonel Naomi Pierce became a reluctant figurehead of this new era. Her calm, composed face appeared on broadcasts whenever officials spoke of the successful defense at Saturn. She was praised as a hero by some, though she carried the weight of the lives lost under her command. Late at night, she found herself replaying the battle, wondering if there had been a diplomatic off-ramp they had missed. But each time, she remembered how the Cylon had fired first, how they had admitted to systematically scanning Earth's defenses with the intent to control. Perhaps real peace had never been on the table from the start. Eventually, as repairs on Orbital Station 7 neared completion and the battered wrecks of the Cylon ships were either impounded or returned to their owners, a tenuous calm settled in. The Cylon's final message indicated they would monitor Earth from a distance and might return in the future to propose a more balanced arrangement if humanity proved willing to share the secrets behind their quantum shield technology. On Earth, reactions varied. Some voices argued for establishing open lines of communication to avoid another violent clash, while others insisted that advanced human technology remain classified, not to be shared with any potential foe. Naomi found a peculiar optimism blooming in her heart as she watched Cylon craft fade to distant points of light beyond Pluto's orbit. Maybe the Cylon were as divided among themselves as humans were. Perhaps there were those among them who questioned their civilization's strict paternalistic stance. If so, maybe these internal debates could lead to a bridging of differences. In any case, the Alliance was no longer naive about cosmic politics. They had learned that first contact could be messy, full of misunderstandings, or full of power plays designed to exploit perceived weaknesses. And they had learned that playing the underdog could turn the tables if used judiciously. Aboard the Valkyrie, life settled into a new routine. Drills were conducted daily to ensure the crew could switch from standard systems to sunshield configurations at a moment's notice. Naomi insisted on rotating shore leave, letting her officers decompress on Earth or at the L5 colonies. She encouraged them to spend time with loved ones to remind themselves of the life they protected. She also led a small diplomatic unit tasked with drafting possible guidelines for future alien encounters. They took notes from the Cylon fiasco, identifying the red flags they had missed, the intelligence leaks they could have plugged sooner. Every so often, Naomi replayed Zarek's parting words, "We are not blind to reality. We will depart your inner system for now." She wondered if the next contact might be with a different Cylon envoy, one less driven to dominate, or if Zarek himself would return with larger fleets. For all their advanced scanning and weaponry, the Cylon had not broken Earth's spirit. In fact, they might have reinforced it. Humanity stood tall, battle-scarred but resolute. And perhaps, somewhere deep in Cylon territory, there were voices urging caution or even curiosity about a species that had defied the odds and survived its own self-destruction. As she took one last look at the ringed giant Saturn, Naomi reflected on the warlike path humanity had once walked and how close they had come to total annihilation. It was the crucible of that tragedy which had sparked the new technologies, the quantum leaps that silenced the Cylon beams in an explosion of refracted light. We are children of conflict, Naomi thought, and we are determined never to face that horror again. Whether that meant forging alliances or using unstoppable shields, they would decide on their own terms. She closed her eyes against the swirl of passing stars, letting the hum of the Valkyrie's systems soothe her anxious mind. This was not the end of the story, but the first chapter in a much larger narrative, one in which Earth was no mere footnote. They had revealed enough might to ensure that the next time an alien power contemplated seizing their world, they would remember the shattered crystals around Saturn and think twice. And so the Valkyrie sailed on, returning to a battered station, but a triumphant people, carrying within its hull the unspoken promise that no matter who came knocking at the solar system's door, humanity would be ready. That knowledge, more than anything, served as a quiet beacon of hope in the uncertain frontier that stretched beyond the sun's warm glow. Narita stood on the highest terrace of her palace, gazing over the jagged plains of Astrian. Beneath the violet sky, crystalline sand dunes stretched into the distance, shimmering with trapped cosmic energy. Storms formed at the edges of those dunes, twisting into lethal cyclones that battered any city or settlement careless enough to rise too high. In the heart of those storms, she thrived. She was known across the galaxy by many titles: the Stormbearer, the Silver Fury, the one no alien man dared challenge more than once. Stories abounded of how she sent suitors fleeing, broken in pride, and sometimes broken in body. Yet on that evening, her eyes were heavier with weariness than usual. In the hush of the late hour, no one saw the subtle sigh that escaped her lips. All her life, she had been taught that power was her destiny and that fear was the surest path to wielding it. As a child, she had been taken from her mother's arms to undergo the ancient rites of the Astrian bloodline. The swirling energies of the planet's core were channeled into her veins, granting her a connection to the storms that racked the surface. Whenever an emissary from a distant star system arrived, they were met with a calm, yet formidable queen, an aura of crackling energy surrounding her. She was rumored to be older than she appeared, though her youthful features might have been a testament to the planet's unique electromagnetic flows. Pride and distance had become her armor. No one approached her without trembling. She believed that was how it should be, until she realized how alone it made her feel. Word of her cruelty, or what passed for cruelty in the eyes of outsiders, traveled faster than any warp drive. Males from a dozen species had sought her hand for political advantage, only to scurry away when faced with the reality of her power. Some vanished entirely under suspicious circumstances. She never explained herself. She simply allowed the rumors to grow until any man who arrived at Astrian believed he stood at the gates of a vengeful goddess. In truth, she was exhausted by their pretenses and their self-serving cunning. Each one only wanted the throne, a path to controlling Astrian secrets. None had ever shown genuine interest in her as a person. Within the palace halls, council members and generals quietly fretted about her future. Some whispered that the planet was becoming too isolated, that an empire built on fear would spark the aggression of neighboring star systems. Others insisted that she was unassailable. As long as the storms answered her call, no army could breach Astrian's defenses. No fleet dared approach too closely, for fear the planet's swirling electromagnetic fields would tear them apart. She found it ironic. Isolation was not a conscious goal, but it was the inevitable result of her own legend. In a private chamber gilded with pale blue metal, she allowed her power to simmer at her fingertips, faint crackles of energy dancing between her silver nails. Glancing at the mirror, she saw the reflection of an imposing woman with eyes the color of steel. The reflection felt like someone else's face. Turning away, she tried not to recall the last time she had allowed anyone to touch her without flinching. Her guards, her council, even her personal attendants, everyone kept a respectful distance. She exhaled softly, telling herself this was the price of authority. Beyond the windows, a fresh storm brewed, the distant flashes of lightning reflected against the swirling dunes. An alarm cut through the night. She stiffened, hand already closing around the ornate dagger at her belt. Astrian's palace rarely raised alarms. Any small vessel foolish enough to drift into Astrian's orbit was typically deterred by the storms or the orbital defenses. Intrusions were rare indeed. Her door burst open, and a breathless guard stepped in, quickly bowing low. He did not dare meet her eyes as he announced that an unidentified craft was crashing through the planet's outer storms. A single occupant, No large warship in sight. Possibly an escape pod or small emergency vessel. The defense grid had registered minimal weaponry, no immediate threat. Despite the guard's obvious hesitation, she summoned her council. The large round table in the palace's strategy chamber was soon occupied by anxious advisors. Some recommended ignoring the crash. Most off-worlders who landed on Astrian without permission succumbed to the planet's harsh environment. Others argued that they should send a detachment to intercept the occupant for questioning. She lifted her hand, silencing their bickering. She would go personally. This caused gasps of alarm. Their queen did not usually leave the palace on a whim. Yet she overruled their objections with a cold, unflinching stare. Within minutes, she had donned her specialized suit of light armor, designed to harness the planet's electromagnetic currents. Its silver plates glinted under the corridor lights, forming an almost skin-tight protective carapace. Her royal skimmer cut across the storm-racked sky with a hum, flanked by 2 escort craft. Turbulent winds lashed at them, lightning dancing just beyond the cockpit's energy shields. She watched the readouts on the console. The occupants' life signs were human. The names stirred ancient recollections. Decades ago, Earth had ended relations with Astrian over some Cold War incident. As far as she knew, no humans had ventured near the planet in generations. Curiosity flickered within her, unbidden but undeniable. They found the crash site at the edge of a steep crystalline cliff. A battered escape pod smoldered, half buried in glassy sand. She halted her skimmer and jumped down, leaving her guards behind her. Scorch marks and crumpled metal told a story of a violent entry into the atmosphere. She approached cautiously, ignoring the howling wind that threatened to knock lesser beings off balance. She heard the hiss of depressurization as someone or something stirred inside. Bracing herself, she reached for the hatch. It opened with a pneumatic groan, and a tall, lean man emerged, coughing through the acrid smoke. His face was partly covered by the remains of an oxygen mask, his uniform torn. Blood stained his temple, but he did not collapse. He tried to straighten, obviously in pain. Then his eyes met hers. She expected fear. That was what she usually saw. Instead, his gaze was steady, as if registering the strangeness of her aura but not cowering from it. She noted the color of his irises, an earthy brown, so different from the tinted eyes of Astrian's people. He murmured a greeting, half in jest, something along the lines of "nice weather you have," before wincing at the cut on his lip. The rhetorical remark disarmed her for a fraction of a second. She had expected an apology, a plea, or at least trembling. None came. She asked for his name. He identified himself as Kai Alden, a special operations and research officer from Earth. He had been aboard a science vessel that was attacked by raiders. This was the only planet within range to crash land. He gave a faint shrug, attempting a wry smile despite his obvious injuries. Her guards behind her whispered among themselves, uncertain how to proceed. She stared at this man who showed no sign of deference, no wide-eyed terror. He was alert, respectful, but not submissive. She found it oddly refreshing. Though he was bleeding and unarmed, she sensed the unwavering composure in him. Stepping aside, she allowed 2 medics to approach, scanning his vitals. Another guard demanded that he kneel before the queen, but Kai simply looked at the guard and then at her, as though waiting for her direct command. She said nothing, remembering how tired she was of seeing men quake and grovel. This human's curiosity, tinged with confidence, was something new. Instead of punishing his boldness, she ordered him brought to the palace for questioning, not as a prisoner, but as a guest under close watch. The guards were stunned, but complied. She returned to her skimmer, her mind swirling with questions she refused to voice. On the flight back, she was silent while her escort gave occasional glances, half expecting her to unleash anger at any moment. The palace soared above them like a fortress carved from shimmering minerals. Glistening spires radiated energy from the planet's core, while smaller towers were connected by a network of translucent walkways. Kai was led inside, his boots crunching over polished floors that flickered with pulses of stored electromagnetic power. He was granted a guest suite in the Tower of Mirrors, a place rarely used, because tradition demanded that visitors to Astrian remain in more austere quarters. But she saw no reason to lock him in a cell. The curiosity he awakened in her overrode old protocols. Word spread rapidly among the courtiers. A human had arrived, and the queen had not struck him down or banished him. Some believed it was a ploy, that she would publicly execute him after extracting whatever intelligence he possessed about Earth's defenses. Others gossiped that the human must have magical technology to control her mind. The rumors churned, fueled by the fact that no one had ever seen their queen personally escort an outsider into the palace. Council members squabbled. Generals debated how to handle the intrusion. Meanwhile, she issued no explanation, only stating that she would handle the matter herself. Kai, for his part, had never encountered a planet like Astrian. The air crackled with static, and the environment forced him to recalibrate his portable scanners. His first days were spent limping around his assigned suite, puzzling over the charged water in the bathing chamber that made his skin tingle. Each morning, he found new bruises from the crash, yet his spirits remained intact. He politely answered the staff's questions in broken phrases when they dared speak to him. Many stared in open fascination, for most of them had never seen a human in the flesh. On the fourth day, she summoned him to a private audience. He arrived in clothes lent by the palace tailors, the style somewhat awkward for him. Flared sleeves, sharp collar, metallic threading that flickered with stored energy. He joked that the outfit might start sparking if he moved too abruptly. The guards, of course, did not find it amusing. When he entered her chamber, she stood by a massive window, the purple sky swirling beyond. Thin arcs of lightning flicked in the distance. She turned to him, arms crossed over her silvery breastplate, revealing slender yet powerful arms. Her first question was abrupt. Did humans still wage constant wars among themselves, or had Earth found some measure of unity? He responded simply, without flourish. Earth was more united than in centuries past, but old divisions lingered. She studied his face, as if searching for deception. He spoke plainly of Earth's complexity, of alliances and rivalries, of how some star systems admired Earth while others despised it. He did not hide that he was a soldier, though his true passion was research. She was intrigued that his approach to conflict was more nuanced than she expected. So many suitors she had met spoke only of power, conquest, or cunning alliances. In the following days, she allowed him a degree of freedom that astounded the palace staff. He dined at a small banquet in the main hall, sitting not at her table, but close enough to converse. He passed the test of eating Astrian's exotic dishes, some of which contained mild electrical discharges. The first time a piece of fruit shocked his fingertips, he merely gave a quiet laugh and remarked on the fascinating adaptation. She watched him with an unreadable expression, remembering how so many others had yelped or complained. He did neither. As time went on, Kai found himself increasingly in her presence. Sometimes he would see her overseeing a martial demonstration in the courtyard, lightning dancing around her blade as she practiced the planet's martial art forms. Other times, he found her in the archives, studying ancient star charts that charted Astrian's earliest expansions. On those occasions, he would respectfully remain silent unless she addressed him. She noted his ability to sense when to speak and when to hold his tongue. Many aliens had tried to impress her with false bravado or flattery, only to be cast out. This man simply observed. She began to include him in discussions with her generals, some of whom reacted with thinly veiled hostility. A human had no place advising them. They insisted. She would fix them with a glare that sent shivers down their backs. Behind the scenes, plots began to form. Certain nobles, like Lord Severe and Lady Ryson, watched these developments with mounting alarm. They believed the Queen's stoic isolation was her greatest weapon. Now, with a stranger at her side, she seemed dangerously unpredictable. They whispered warnings to her High Commander, Orov, a veteran of countless border skirmishes. He had devoted his life to ensuring Astrian's might, and he was not about to see it compromised by what he perceived as an off-world distraction. Orov had served her father before her, and believed unwaveringly in strength by intimidation. One night, Orov confronted her in the council chamber. Why, he asked, did she keep this human so close? Didn't she realize the risk that he could be a spy, an agent sent by Earth or some other lurking power? The queen listened in silence before calmly telling Orov he should remember his place. Orov's jaw tightened, but he bowed and stepped away. Later, he met privately with disaffected nobles, conferring on how to handle what they believed was a looming threat to Astrian's dominion. Meanwhile, Kai found himself drawn to the topmost balcony near midnight. A savage storm had swelled over the capital city, lightning flickering in arcs across the dome that shielded the palace complex. He was admiring the interplay of energies when she appeared beside him, soundless. She told him that Astrian storms were a reflection of the planet's soul, and that she had been bonded to it since she was a child. He asked her gently if that bond ever felt like a cage. She stared at him, taken aback by the question. No one had asked her that. No one had ever cared about the weight of her power, only its existence. She admitted, hesitantly, that she sometimes wondered if she was more storm than person. How could anyone approach her without feeling the static that crackled beneath her skin? Kai answered that he had faced many dangers in his time, and that fear was a natural reaction, but it could also be overcome by curiosity and respect. She said nothing, yet he sensed the conversation had touched something deep within her. Days later, chaos erupted. Orov, in collusion with multiple lower-ranking officers, staged an armed uprising inside the palace. Under cover of a fierce sandstorm, they seized control of an outer gate and tried to storm the council halls. Their reason: they believed the queen was risking the planet's future by entertaining a foreign influence. Some conspirators even believed they could dethrone her and install a more malleable ruler. Many generals and guards remained loyal, but confusion spread as sabotage disrupted communication lines. Kai, alerted by an exhausted courier, rushed through the palace corridors, ignoring the danger. Sparks from short-circuited wires danced along the walls. He found a group of rebels cornering two loyal guards in an antechamber. They leveled energy rifles with a high-pitched whine. Without hesitating, Kai tackled one rebel from behind, seizing the rifle's muzzle to tilt it away. A burst of ionic discharge burned into the ceiling. The second guard, newly emboldened, lunged forward, taking advantage of Kai's assist. In moments, the rebels were subdued. Kai coughed, acrid smoke stinging his lungs. He told the loyal guards to keep moving forward and protect the queen. A deeper blast echoed through the palace, shaking the floors beneath them. He sprinted toward the throne room, heart pounding. He had known her only a short while, and yet he felt compelled to ensure her safety. In that vast hall, columns of glowing crystal soared overhead. At the far end, he saw her confronting Orov and several conspirators. A swirling field of energy dampeners flickered between them, preventing her from summoning the storm energies she normally wielded. It was a cunning tactic. Orov raised a specialized weapon that hummed in resonance with the dampener field. She could not channel her power effectively. Nonetheless, she held her ground, brandishing a slender blade of metal that glinted with trapped lightning. A half-dozen loyal guards lay injured around the chamber's perimeter, pinned down by the conspirators' devices. Orov demanded that she surrender, claiming she had become unfit to rule. She gave a sharp, scornful laugh. Her voice echoed across the chamber. Even stripped of her storm connection, her presence was formidable. She lunged at Orov, blade meeting his in a jarring clash of sparks. The dampener field crackled. Kai skirted the edges of the confrontation, searching for an opening. He noticed the device generating the dampener, an orb of swirling purple set on a pedestal, guarded by two heavily armed conspirators. He realized if he could destroy that orb, she might regain her powers. He pressed himself against a pillar, exhaling slowly, then darted forward. The conspirators saw him out of the corner of their eyes. One fired a barrage of energy bolts. He dived behind a fallen statue, panting. She, meanwhile, fought Orov with a deadly grace. Without her full power, she relied on pure skill, parrying and striking. Each impact sent jolts of minor static through the floor. Orov was bigger, but she was faster. Yet she could not finish him off as long as the field continued to short out her elemental connection. Spotting Kai, she realized what he intended. She feigned a retreat, drawing Orov's attention, forcing him to press the attack. Kai seized the moment, sliding out from behind the statue. He loosed a desperate shot from a captured rebel rifle, the ion bolt slamming into one of the guards near the orb. The second guard turned, but Kai was already lunging, slamming the butt of the rifle across the guard's helmet. The guard staggered. The pedestal, unprotected, hummed ominously. Kai bashed the orb with all his strength. It cracked, leaking violet arcs of energy. A small explosion sent him flying back, chest plate sizzling. Rolling to a stop, he coughed and tried to see through the smoke. The dampener field flickered, then collapsed. In that heartbeat, Narration let out a cry like thunder. The air around her surged, her silver armor glowing as the planet's energy rushed into her. A vortex of crackling lightning danced up her arms, coalescing into a brilliant sphere at her fingertips. Orov stumbled back, eyes wide. He tried to raise his blade, but she thrust her palm forward. A blast of searing white lightning erupted, shattering his weapon and enveloping him in a shrieking torrent of power. When it subsided, he lay on the floor, armor scorched, energy fizzling around him. The remaining conspirators dropped their arms, terrified. She stood there, chest heaving, the lightning still wreathing her fingers. A hush descended upon the chamber, broken only by the groans of the wounded. Kai slowly pushed himself to his feet, wincing at bruised ribs. Her gaze found him, noticing the scorch marks on his borrowed uniform, the sweat dripping from his brow. She strode forward, the static crackling diminishing as she forced the storm within her to recede. He did not step away. When they were inches apart, he managed a strained smile, telling her that she still looked terrifying. A ghost of a grin tugged at her lips as her powers receded, acknowledging his humor. Loyal soldiers arrived to contain the rebels. Those who had joined Orov were disarmed and made to kneel. Orov himself was unconscious, eventually dragged away under heavy guard. The rumor spread that the queen had shown mercy, ordering her conspirators exiled to the harsh frontier regions rather than executing them outright. This stunned the court. She had never shown such leniency before. Some assumed she was playing a deeper game, that worse fates might await them later. Others whispered that the presence of the human had changed her temperament. In the aftermath, the palace reeled from the damage. Repairs were quickly underway. She addressed her council, ignoring her bruises and the clear fatigue in her eyes. She made it clear that fear alone would not hold Astrian together, and that those who betrayed her would face consequences. But there was now a path to redemption through service. The entire council listened in stunned silence. One by one, they bowed, swearing loyalty anew. Kai spent that evening in the palace infirmary, having his burns treated. He was about to slip into restless sleep when she visited him, her hair unbound for once, falling in dark waves over her shoulders. Without her imposing armor, she seemed very different. Sitting by his bedside, she thanked him. He tried to brush it off, but she insisted that few would risk their life to save hers. Their conversation drifted into unexpected territory. She admitted that her entire upbringing revolved around invincibility. Showing any vulnerability, physical or emotional, was deemed unacceptable. Now, she realized vulnerability allowed for real connection. She softly confessed her uncertainty about the path she was treading. He told her he didn't see weakness in her. Instead, he saw someone who had carried too many burdens alone. Her eyes glistened, though no tears fell. She placed her hand lightly over his, as if testing whether the simple warmth of a touch could be a new form of strength. After a moment, she rose and left, but the comfort of that fleeting contact lingered in his mind. Days slipped by as the palace returned to a semblance of order. The conspirators, stripped of rank and privilege, were exiled to remote territories to rebuild what they had torn apart. Some believed they would never return. Others thought it a more severe punishment than death. Still, no one dared question the Queen's decree openly. Her authority remained unchallenged. Yet even as the cracks in the palace walls were sealed, a looming threat cast its shadow. Spies brought news that the Velix Alliance, a cluster of star systems that once tried to strong-arm Astrian into submission, was mobilizing. Their warships were on the march through neighboring sectors. She summoned her generals, including the newly promoted ones who had proven loyal. Kai was present at her request. Together, they examined holographic projections of the Velix fleet. Astrian was powerful, but the Velix outnumbered them significantly. If the Alliance had gleaned any sign of weakness from recent internal strife, they would seize the chance. Her advisors raised concerns, questioning whether Astrian's famed storms would be enough to deter a large-scale invasion. She knew the storms alone would not stop them this time. Their technology likely included advanced field disruptors or even planetary bombardment cannons. Kai studied the readouts. He had no illusions about the ferocity of interstellar warfare. He suggested ways to position defense platforms along the outer orbit, recommended infiltration tactics to disrupt the Velix supply lines. Some generals bristled at taking advice from a Terran. She silenced them with a sharp glance, reminding them that the same Terran had saved her throne from Orev's coup. Together, they formulated a plan to gather the bulk of Astrian's fleet near the polar region, using the planet's electromagnetic anomalies to mask the number of ships. The Queen planned to personally lead the initial defensive line, harnessing the storms to inflict maximum havoc on the enemy's vanguard. The day the Velix fleet arrived, a hush blanketed the capital. Children were moved to underground shelters. Citizens, used to the Queen's invulnerability, clung to desperate hope that she could repel even this threat. Their hearts pounded as sensors detected the mass of warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, forming an ominous formation in high orbit. A massive dreadnought, bearing the Velix crest, took center position. Their initial broadcast demanded Astrian's immediate surrender. They accused the Queen of growing weak, rumored to be coddling an alien consort. She heard the transmission in the palace war room, a flicker of anger crossing her features. The next broadcast threatened planetary bombardment if she refused. She stood, clad in radiant, upgraded battle armor, which extended beyond her shoulders in sleek arcs that crackled with power from Astrian's core. As she stepped onto her personal flagship, a graceful craft designed to channel her storm abilities, she locked eyes with Kai. She asked him to coordinate ground defenses and oversee evacuation protocols. He wanted to fight at her side, but she convinced him that she needed him to keep the people safe. Reluctantly, he agreed, though his concern for her was clear. She squeezed his hand before departing, an unspoken acknowledgement that they now shared something deeper than alliance. The first volleys of the battle were devastating. Velix warships unleashed beams of destructive energy at Astrian's orbital stations. The Queen, controlling atmospheric surges, caused catastrophic electrical storms that lanced through several enemy vessels, sending them spiraling into the planet's gravitational field. Yet the Velix had prepared for such tactics. They deployed broad-spectrum shields that blunted her lightning strikes. Their second wave hammered her fleet with punishing blasts. She could only watch in grim determination as some of her own cruisers disintegrated, though her top admirals fought with unwavering loyalty. Kai, meanwhile, directed squads of ground-based interceptors from the Palace Command Center, trying to coordinate rescue efforts for the disabled Astrian ships. Over comm channels, he heard the Queen's voice, steady yet tinged with tension, as she ordered a counterattack. Her plan was to lure the Velix dreadnought closer to the planet's electromagnetic storms, where her power was strongest. The storms, growing more intense by the minute, were her birthright. But the scale of the Velix assault tested the limits of her synergy with Astrian's energy. In the swirling darkness above, her craft glowed like a beacon, arcs of lightning radiating outward. All seemed on the verge of a precarious stalemate when the Velix unleashed their trump card, an ancient disruptor beam, rumored to be capable of damaging planetary cores. As the dreadnought's massive cannon charged, panic rippled across Astrian's defenders. If that beam struck the planet's surface, it could destabilize the electromagnetic flows that were the source of her power. She refused to let that happen. Gathering her will, she channeled a colossal surge of energy from the roiling clouds around her, aiming it directly at the dreadnought's weapon. Lightning cascaded in bright webs, fracturing the vacuum of space with arcs that danced across the dreadnought's surface. The disruptor's charging sequence faltered momentarily, giving her fleet a chance to press forward. But the Velix recovered faster than expected. The dreadnought unleashed a partial discharge of the beam, which tore through her flagship's protective shields. Alarm screamed. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. She grit her teeth, refusing to retreat. She would not yield her home to invaders. The partial beam hammered the planet's upper atmosphere, sending shockwaves that caused the planet's storms to convulse violently. Debris rained from the sky. In the palace below, structural integrity began to fail in some towers. Kai rushed to organize emergency responses, but his heart twisted with dread. He could feel, even from the ground, that she was pushing herself beyond safe limits. In the battered flagship, she coughed against the acrid smoke. Technicians frantically tried to keep systems online. The cosmic storms raged, a reflection of her fury and her desperation. She refused to surrender, refused to let her planet fall. Yet a flicker of fear took hold. Perhaps the Velix truly had the power to break Astrian, if she could not find a way to drive them off. Summoning what remained of her energy reserves, she opened a direct line to the palace command center. She told them the planetary storms alone were not enough. She needed a second vantage, a crucial misdirection to draw the dreadnought's attention while she gathered all her power for a final strike. He understood immediately. He led a contingent of elite fighters out from the planet's surface, skirting the edges of the largest storm system to attack the dreadnought's flank. Her battered flagship used that precious moment to circle behind the dreadnought, risking the gravitational well that could crush them. The storm energies surged around her, guided by her will. She concentrated so intensely that her veins glowed with raw power. The next sequence of lightning blasts she unleashed dwarfed anything she had done before. It slammed into the dreadnought's shields, overloading them. The ship's hull buckled, electrical arcs dancing over its surface. Explosions flared along its length. At the same time, Kai's strike force bombarded the dreadnought's vulnerable rear compartments. Under combined pressure, the gargantuan vessel began to crack. Then, in a final thunderous roar, the dreadnought imploded, scattering twisted metal into the void. Their flagship battered, but victorious, the Queen radioed the rest of the Velix fleet. She demanded their retreat or face obliteration. Without the dreadnought, the Velix line faltered. Ship by ship, they jumped away into faster-than-light corridors. The battered Astrian fleet cheered, though many ships were heavily damaged. She limped home in triumph, though her reserves were dangerously depleted. The storms over Astrian's surface began to quiet, as if the planet itself recognized her victory. Yet that quiet revealed widespread destruction below. Parts of the capital had been leveled by orbital bombardment, and hundreds were wounded. Kai, returning from the space battle, found the palace in partial ruins. He rushed through corridors strewn with debris, calling her name. He discovered her in a collapsed hallway near the starport annex, leaning against a broken column. Her once glowing armor was scorched and cracked. She was breathing, but her eyes flickered in and out of focus. He knelt beside her, feeling a trembling relief that she was still alive. She attempted to stand, insisting she had to see to her people. He pressed a hand gently to her shoulder, cautioning that she needed medical attention. Her eyes met his in the half-lit gloom. In them, he saw a deep exhaustion, mingled with fierce determination. She murmured that Astrian would recover, that they had prevailed because of something far beyond fear. She had glimpsed an alternative path, one built on loyalty freely given, not coerced. He brushed some broken fragments of crystal from her hair, telling her to rest. For once, she did not argue. In the days that followed, all of Astrian recognized that a new era had begun. The queen toured the damaged regions, personally assisting in relief efforts where she could. The populace witnessed a side of her they never thought existed, a compassionate figure who showed empathy to the families who had lost homes. She still commanded storms when necessary, but no longer from a place of aloofness. The courts buzzed with the transformation, both enthralled and perplexed. Kai, though nursing his own injuries, helped coordinate outside aid where possible, arranged search parties to rescue survivors trapped under rubble. He also spent long hours at her side. When the reconstruction began, she publicly honored the bravery of all who stood against the invasion. She praised Kai among them, naming him not an outsider, but a protector of Astrian. No formal ceremony was held to declare the nature of their bond, but the truth was visible to everyone. As the capital was rebuilt with reinforced walls and newly refined energy shielding, they would often be found walking side by side. The atmosphere between them was not that of a queen and a subordinate, but of equals who had stood together through crisis. Gone were the days of suspicious glances and hushed rumors of an impending coup. In their place arose a cautious, yet genuine admiration from the people. One evening, after the city lights had been restored, she led him to an old structure deep under the palace grounds, a sanctum said to predate the kingdom's founding. Its corridors glowed with relics, each marked by the swirling insignia of storms. She explained that this was where every heir to Astrian's power came to undergo the rite of bonding with the planet's core energies. She had stood on the central dais at a young age, forging a link so strong that it shaped her entire life. Standing there now, with him, she admitted she never thought she would bring anyone to this place. It was too personal, too bound to the roots of her identity. He listened to her recount how everyone expected her to feel nothing but ferocity, how she never had a chance to learn gentleness. He told her that he believed the storms could purify as well as destroy, that there was a form of gentleness in guiding chaotic energy. They stepped onto the dais together, and a subtle resonance trembled through the air. The ancient crystal structures responded to her presence, humming with renewed vitality. She realized that by letting someone else witness this innermost part of her heritage, she was stepping away from the solitude she once clung to. Word of reconstruction efforts and the Queen's changed demeanor spread to the far corners of the galaxy. The name that once struck terror now inspired a more complex awe. Some said she had found a new source of power. Others claimed she must have subdued the human under some enchantment. Yet those who saw them together spoke of a mutual respect. He continued wearing adapted Astrian garments, more at ease in them now, but he never knelt or cowered. She ceased demanding total subservience from all those around her. Some of her people whispered that for the first time, they felt they could approach their monarch with honest words, not trembling worship. A year after the Velix invasion was repelled, the city was mostly rebuilt, stronger than before. The palace spires rose sleek and shining, each etched with symbols that commemorated unity, rather than fear. On a mild evening under the pinkish sky, she and Kai strolled along a newly completed walkway that wound around the outer ramparts, overlooking fields of luminous crystals. She paused, gazing at how the horizon shimmered with possibility rather than threat. The storms, never fully absent, now formed gentler displays of lightning that danced among the clouds like cosmic fireworks. He asked her if she missed the sense of absolute power she once wielded with an iron will. She answered that she still had her power, but now it felt tempered by purpose. She no longer had to rely on fear to keep her throne. She had discovered that the planet's strength could be channeled through calm as well as rage. She took his hand, marveling at how natural it felt. Once, any hint of closeness had seemed like a liability, a weakness that others might exploit. Now, she understood that true strength lay in forging bonds as well as wielding storms. They stopped at the edge of a parapet, wind ruffling their hair. She spoke softly, confessing that she often wondered how different her life might have been had she known earlier that it was possible to be both powerful and open-hearted. He told her the past could not be rewritten, but the future was wide open, and they stood at its threshold together. There was a pause as the wind sighed around them. Her silver eyes, once so cold, held a quiet warmth now. When she leaned forward, pressing her lips to his, it felt like the final release of tension that had built over a lifetime of self-imposed distance. The energy in the air swirled around them in a subtle glow, the planet's storms echoing that moment of vulnerability. If she had once symbolized terror across the galaxy, she now stood for something far more nuanced. A ruler who had learned that empathy did not erode authority, but rather fortified it. No grand decree was issued. No formal banquet was hosted to celebrate a royal consort. Yet across Astrian, and indeed throughout nearby systems, the story spread. The queen who had once been dreaded by every alien man had found an unexpected connection with a lone human who refused to fear her. The rumors took on countless variations, some wildly inaccurate, others romanticized. Yet all agreed on one point. Astrian's queen had changed, and with her, the entire planet. In the final months of that year, alliances that had been dissolved for decades were renewed. Some star systems that once cowered away began trade negotiations. Even the Velix Alliance sent a carefully worded letter seeking a non-aggression pact, though she accepted only after ensuring they paid appropriate reparations. A new chapter for Astrian was unfolding, and she, standing with Kai at her side, faced it with unwavering resolve. Long after the last of the palace repairs were finished, she would walk the corridors and remember how different everything once felt. So cold, so solitary. She could feel the planet's heartbeat resonating with her own. On certain nights, she still commanded the storms and displays of raw might, reminding the cosmos that she had not lost any of her fearsome abilities. But now, at the heart of that tempest, there was a lightness. In her private reflections, she allowed herself a quiet satisfaction that she had found a companion able to stand in the vortex with her, unafraid of the lightning that crowned her brow. Thus the legend evolved. Across the stars, people recounted how every alien man in the galaxy had once trembled before her. Then came the human who did not tremble, and in that unwavering gaze, she discovered the one element missing from her rule, the validation that she was more than a force of nature. She was also a woman who deserved to be truly seen. And because of that, everything on Astrian and beyond was irrevocably changed.